Hello! Howdy everybody, welcome to episode 2. This is the TR edition of the L2PS2 Infantry Training Camp show on the official PlanetSide 2 Twitch channel. I am, if you don't know, I'm ItZMuRdA. I am been in the PlanetSide community since the beta of PlanetSide 1 back in 2003. My favorite game of all time. I'm happy to be here. I am primarily an infantry player. I play all three empires, and today's focus is going to be on TR. Next week's show will be to be determined whether it's going to be NC or VS. We have a straw poll going on that I'll put back in the chat right now for anybody who's here who wants to vote, and then whatever the week after that will be the loser of the vote, and next week will be the winner of the vote. The show is really just going to focus around primarily infantry. There will be, occasional vehicle play and stuff like that. Just kind of giving some thought process into the decisions I make, be it where I spawn at, which fights I go to, analyzing the map, as well as loadouts, classes, guns, choices of all sorts of different things. I'm always taking questions. Feel free to bracket question in chat if you want, and I'll try to keep up with it as much as I can and answer everything that I can. Hello, T-Ray. How are you, sir? You seem very excited to see me, so I am excited to see you too. Alright, so I am on TR already. We are on Emerald at the moment. That's where my TR BR100 is. And I'm just checking out the map first. Just so you know, if you didn't watch last week's show, my map colors are a little bit odd. Gray is my friendlies, and red, the two different shades of red, are the two different enemies. I just find it easier that way to identify friendly and foe. Mostly in-game, not so much on the map, but whatever. Nonetheless, that's what we're looking at. I know it's a little bit confusing to be playing TR and red to be all of the enemies, but nonetheless, that's what we're looking at. Game sound should not be muted or anything like that. There's just not really anything going on just yet. I'm just sitting on the map, so you'll let me know here in a sec, but I think it should be all squared away. Xenotech could potentially be a good fight. Again, when I'm looking for fights, I'm trying to preferably find defensive fights. Ideally, I like being outnumbered a little bit so that, the fight will last a little while. We're a little bit of the underdogs. And preferably, I like medium-sized fights, 25 to 48 versus 25 to 48, ideally. But nonetheless, I'm going to check out Xenotech. It seems like it's a fairly even slightly in our favor defense at the moment. There's a queue for Indar, so I'm just sitting in that real quick. The UI sounds are really, really subtle. I'm pretty sure they're there. You guys are just crazy. Or maybe I'm the crazy one. Alright, so I'm getting into Indar now. I'm going to fly over there, most likely, just for the sake of making an entrance. The Cougar, one of the newer carbines, is actually something that I like quite a lot. It offers TR a kind of an interesting setup that they don't otherwise have in a carbine, or that they didn't before. The T5 AMC was previously their mid to long range go-to carbine, and that was kind of untraditional in terms of doing less damage than like the Pulsar C or the ACX-11 for VS or NC. So the Cougar kind of gives you something that can work all around fairly well. I still prefer like the Lynx or the Jaguar maybe for very close range, and the T5 AMC is still a really good option for long range, but Jaguar can fill both roles, especially if you run it with a laser sight like I have it for close and far. So I just have this under pretty good control at this moment. Yeah, game sound should be okay. Oh, I totally forgot I had Hornets. LOL. But let me know. I mean, I can turn it up if I have to, but it's the same that I always play at. I'm gonna get right into the fight here. Well, this is no good. So, how's our game sound now? Way better? It's the same thing I always play on, so it should be more or less alright. So they've got their Sunder in their typical spot southwest of Xenotech. We've actually got the majority of this hex under our control now. Somebody had asked before for some sniping, and it's not necessarily the most entertaining or even easiest thing to do. Kind of requires the right fight for it, I think. But I could potentially pick it up real quick and see what this looks like. I'm by no means the best sniper out there. Much rather watch Taroko kill or somebody like that. Alright, fair enough, LCTR. I think I may end up just grabbing like an SOAS or something like that and running a mid-range infill through here. Because I'm gonna sit here and try to get closer and closer to this fight anyway and not get run over by that harasser. Or that harasser. So it kind of just defeats the purpose anyway of having a sniper rifle. I'm not sure how these harassers aren't killing me yet, but nonetheless I'm still alive. Wow, I'm bad. Alright, so yeah, I mean, voice shouldn't be cutting out. I do have push to talk set up just so that you don't get me sneezing and things like that in the background, but shouldn't be cutting out unless something's malfunctioning. So anyway, I'm gonna grab SOAS for this particular situation. The fully automatic scout rifle, and I'm running it with a 1x scope and a laser sight, so that when I have to, I can still fight in relatively close quarter. But it's a bit of a beast if you aim down sight with it still, nonetheless. It's kind of a really nice weapon for when you have to play mid-range infill. You don't want to be necessarily sniping, but you can't just be in hipfire range all the time. It's something I've been running more and more lately. It's definitely always worth checking your map again every so often to see if there's better fights that have come about since you've been in a base. So probably next time I die, I'm going to go ahead and do that. As well, this isn't a bad fight. It could certainly be a little bit better. They're kind of like crammed in on the other side of this rock, and we're over at our base. Oh, just kidding. That's our beacon. Oh well, good thing I didn't kill it. Or maybe I did. Not sure why we had a beacon there. Well, no we don't. It's funny because I almost never kill beacons, but I didn't really want somebody to drop on my head. Wow. Why is this guy not dead? I'll learn what Empire I'm playing sooner or later. See, now if the beacon... Well, no, that wouldn't make sense. If friendly beacons were gray, then I wouldn't be an idiot. Environmental fans... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there shouldn't really be any crazy ambient noise going on right now that it's picking up. Could be my ridiculous mouse pad movements. But anyway, SOAS allows you to kind of play this range a little bit better, rather than being right up in their face and being fully committed to with an SMG. That often leaves you pretty vulnerable. You know, maybe you'll kill a couple guys, but then you'll be kind of in over your head. So this allows you to play a little bit more conservative mid-range. And it's still extremely accurate even with a laser sight on it. You don't need the forward grip or the compensator. And then it allows you to have reasonably decent hipfire when you need it like that. So actually, these guns have been among my favorite infiltrator tools. Oh dear. Make sure you're keeping up recon darts or motion spotters too if you are playing infill regardless. Having that minimap awareness both for yourself and for your team is huge. So getting used to looking at the minimap frequently if you don't, as well as just having that available when you do. The default sensor darts, the recon detect device, definitely the way to go for some sort of aggressive position like this where you're constantly moving up. But if you're, say, holding down a point like A, B, or C point in a tower, in a base, or something like that, and you're going to be mostly in the same spot, then the motion spotter is going to be better because it's going to actually give you 100% real-time feed on your minimap of where everybody's at, where they're going, rather than periodically being updated. This won't just be 100% infil play or anything like that by any means. We just still have this run going at the moment. But it looks like I'm probably going to switch fights after this since we're pushing on Region Rock now. And as I was saying before, I'd rather defend if I had the option to. One, I enjoy the kind of the underdog type of approach more anyway. Anyway, I shouldn't have done that. But I needed to uncloak to get the ammo, but it was bad timing. But on the other hand, it's also more fun, in my opinion, better EXP, better certs and whatnot, to have a defense that you can kind of just hunker down in. So Tarich is an option, at least for the next couple of minutes. I'm getting a res here. Whoa, alright, that guy is tumbling down the hill. I think he recovered that. I am playing without shadows enabled, yes. The graphics and textures are still on high, though. Just for my friend T-Ray. But shadows are in fact turned down. It's one of the biggest performance hogs. For sure. But I think the game looks awesome, regardless of the settings. Great. Yeah, so I'm kind of in an inconvenient spot now where they have the advantage. So don't be afraid to redeploy out of a fight, even if you're in one. That's oh, hello, BB. So Lithcore Secure Mine is kind of more my speed of something I'm looking for. Smaller fight, slightly outnumbered, but we're gonna lose it within a minute and a half, probably, regardless whether I get there or not. So I'm just kind of glancing at some of these other options. I could certainly try to get there, but I don't think I'm going to make the impact that I need to. So I'm going to take a look at Tarich while I'm here. Wouldn't say intentionally turn down settings to get an advantage. I mean, I realize that might be troll bait, but I honestly go back to playing, Unreal Tournament or, your favorite game of the 90s, and the graphics were nothing compared to today. So I've never been a huge graphics buff. I've always just preferred performance. It's not deliberately to have an advantage or anything like that any more than buying a better graphics card is. So they never really bothered me. I always just, if I have a 120 hertz monitor, I want to get my frames as high as I can. For myself, more so than to have an advantage over others. Looks pretty clean in here. Alright, so they're kind of all at that eastern leg of the base at the moment. You could totally probably grab a vehicle and roll out there and do some serious damage, but I was going to say, in the interest of playing infantry, what I should have done is ran at a slightly further angle to the right, because then I wouldn't have been in line of sight of this guy who also killed me. So that's how I could have done better there. I probably would have killed the one guy and not actually died to the other guy. I'm actually enlarge chat on the other screen just because It's whizzing by fast enough that I don't get to read everything. But oh, that's a good place to get stuck. All right, there we go. Thank you for the rest, Red. So yeah, it's not colorblind mode. It's just yet again another personal preference. Especially since I play all three empires, I found it easier to just discern friendly versus foe, and friendlies are kind of whitish gray, and enemies are red. Helps me not hesitate when taking shots most of the time. I actually don't have access to change the title, so somebody from SOE who has access to the PlanetSide 2 account has to do that, unfortunately. I just have the ability to stream to the channel. So it looks like they're pretty much pushed out of here. Howling Pass could be decent. Lots of times that base takes a while to actually get into the base, and the fighting happens in the fields around it. Looks like we pushed back on Lithcore. Maybe I would have been better off going there, actually. So I'm going to redeploy, which I believe is the U key now by default. The old default was delete, which is what mine still is. You can do that on the map or otherwise. Always worth checking your instant action, which I believe is the I key now. And it brings me back to Regent Rock for what it's worth, just to see up here if it's a base that you want to go to. Oftentimes you can switch continents and then hit that button and see where it wants to take you to as well, just to kind of get around a little bit faster. I was originally hoping it was going to maybe send me to Howling Pass, but it didn't. Lithcore is cleaned up now. Deep Core, on the other hand, is getting kind of slaughtered. Looks like Fort Drexler's going to get cleaned up. Pretty sure Deep Core is going to... Quadi Mountain Complex is actually an interesting base, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Amrish either way. Cobalt is not where I was going, so I'm probably going to end up just flying south to Quadi Mountain Complex. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have the ability to update this stream title, but if somebody's around that does, I'm sure they'll do it. No big, no big. Looks like we are overwhelming them at Quadi now. It's actually a really cool base. It's very easy to defend though, so I'm gonna take a look at it. Yeah. I'm not even gonna bother. Just using this as a mode of transportation at the moment. Don't really want to land on a max, even though there's a burst there. Another thing that I mentioned last time in general, not only use of the minimap, but the use of both expanding the minimap like this and zooming the minimap in and out are pretty huge. The default binds for those are kind of rather inconvenient. They're brackets and H, so I'd recommend rebinding that. The scroll wheel is really good for zooming in and out, much in the same way you would zoom in and out of the map screen. I'm gonna bounce a grenade off in there. A lot of guys. And medkits, since I'm eating them like candy right now. Definitely, probably my #1 recommendation starting out as an infantry player. I would cert out at least 1 or 2 medkits almost before anything else. I mean, maybe I'd grab a scope for 5 certs, or you know, nanoweave 1 for 1 cert, or something very, very inexpensive, but medkits are just invaluable to me. You can use them in so many clutch situations to change the course of battle, especially in like a one-on-one or two-on-one or something like that. And that one unlock goes for all of your classes, so they are forever useful and highly recommended. They're kind of my go-to utility slot item for every class. I mean, sometimes it'll make sense to have C4 or something instead, but that's kind of a bit more situational. Whereas a medkit will always be helpful. Again, I'm using the Cougar here, which is what I was talking about earlier. The new TR carbine. It kind of gives you a bit of flexibility in having a high damage, accurate mid to long range carbine, as well as if you throw it at laser sight on it, something that is pretty good at hipfire. Normally I'd probably go heavy assault for, you know, fighting indoors at that base, but I just happen to still be light assault. We've pretty much have them confined to their teleporter room and their spawn room, so I would normally be looking for another fight. I typically don't stick around for the cap unless, you know, it's such a short cap that I know it's going to be worth it to wait on the EXP. But I'd rather just get into some more action sooner rather than later. Fort Drexler was interesting before. Another thing you can do in a base like this, where the hexes are kind of split, so where there's a portion of the attack on storage hex that's pretty much almost in the base. A lot of times the enemies detected, allies detected will be deceiving, and it'll say 25 to 48 even here, and then if you go to here it'll say there's like a ton of enemies, and most likely that means that there's just like a Sunderer park here or something like that, so you can get a better feel of what fights are looking like through that as well. But no, I don't mind the slow rate of fire. I'm actually quite a fan of a lot of weapons. I'm going to check the instant action again. I don't know if I still have a Mosquito available or not. 15 seconds. I'm a fan of a lot of the slower firing, hard-hitting weapons. I think it's just a preference, at least in the ADS range, in the medium to long range where you're aiming down sights. I've always kind of had a preference for that. The Pulsar C, the ACX-11, the Cougar, at least for the carbines, things like that. Same can be said for other weapons as well. I'm gonna go check out Fort Drexler. I mean, so much of a successful session in PlanetSide 2 is reliant on the fights that are going on at any given point in time on your server for your empire, so on and so forth. So I mean, sometimes you just have to make the best of you know, hopping around different continents if you're just looking for a fight that you really you know, is really your type of fight. And other times there's just so many of them that you can, you know, have your pick of the litter with it. So it really just depends. Banshees are extremely powerful against mexes, by the way. I'm assuming because of the splash, but they really just eat them up. And this is Infantry Training Camp, but that's a freebie. So I play all three empires. I actually have a BR100 on every empire, and I would say that I do prefer NC weaponry just as a personal preference. But I'm going to be doing a NC show and a VS show the following 2 weeks as well. I was just segmenting these so that you know, folks could tune in or watch the VOD of the empire that they play if they only play one of them or something like that. Or you know, I could kind of focus, like I was just saying, on one character, on one empire, on one server for the entire duration of the show, to kind of try to give some insight into finding good fights and whatnot. We're just kind of staying in the air at the moment because I can. No real reason to get out just yet. Not really in any danger. So I may as well have some fun with my taxi before I bail out of it. Or crashed into a tree. Using the Banshee, as I mentioned before, at the moment for what it's worth, the anti-infantry nose gun for the Mosquito. Since we're talking about TR-specific stuff here, almost killed myself with the force of that ejection. Doesn't do a whole lot of anything to vehicles, but boy is it fun to kill infantry with. Has a bit of splash damage. It's like a normal rotary gun with some splash. I was dumb. Should have committed there, especially against DA. Sit there and injured 2 or 3 different people instead of killing. Something like this I could definitely grab a Lynx for. Although I think looks like we're finally rushing into the B point, so might actually go back to play some heavy since I haven't been. I was playing Light Assault there. Definitely my favorite class in the game, just given the versatility that you have. The ability to use the vertical axis element of surprise and so on and so forth that the other classes don't really have available to them. But rolling heavy at the moment, since we're kind of settled in here. That was a max. I had equipped time on the gun. I should have taken my pistol out. I would have had a better chance of killing him. I have a forward grip on my Carve, and that was just bad news bears to get that back up after using the medkit. For what it's worth, forward grips do increase your equip time when you're switching to the weapon that you're using, if you didn't know that. Oh, apparently I grabbed a Carve loadout and not my actual MSWR loadout. Where is that? Did it go away on me because of the advanced laser sight? Yes, it did. So another thing to keep in mind, if you didn't know, as of a recent patch, they merged advanced laser sights and advanced forward grips into one purchase. It's still the same cost overall, but it did reset your loadouts to your stock gun for any that you had, as well as refunded you the cert cost of it, so you can decide to make that purchase again. But that'll throw you off from time to time, as it has for me, if you haven't updated your loadouts already. I don't really want to be chasing a max up that hill. I was hoping I would actually be able to hop off there a little bit sooner. But this is the woes of not being light assault at the moment, because I can't really just hop up this hill. Oh, that rocket primary was for Kudo Chop, and it didn't even kill him. Black armor? Maybe. Alright, so what I'm going to end up doing, make sure I have the correct loadouts here, yeah, is I'm going to spawn as heavy and kind of stick with the group a little bit here. We're not quite spawn camped yet, but we're getting contained fairly well. And Carve is a fairly strong for all-purpose, if you will. I'd say it kind of is preferential to medium range, but it can definitely work in most situations. Whereas the TMG-50 is kind of the go-to long-range weapon, and the MSWR is the go-to close-range weapon. So I use all of them just depending on the situation. The same for the other Empires, with like the Orion SV-88 and the Flare, kind of filling the same roles. And the Anchor and the EM6 for NC. Yeah, so that's another thing worth noting, and I'm not sure if it's planning on being changed at some point in time, but since somebody had mentioned it, you can absolutely turn off your laser sight. Not that it's a huge giveaway, because it's a very thin line in this game. It's not like a blaring red light or anything like that that's very obvious to see. But you can absolutely turn it off, and I always do, and still gain the benefit of it, just as another means of not giving yourself away. You can do the same with the flashlight, but of course you're not actually gaining the benefit of the flashlight showing infiltrators or anything like that if it's turned off. It's funny, LCTR. So Bull versus Rhino, I mean, unfortunately I don't feel like I'm like super qualified to answer that question effectively. I haven't ItZMuRda'd either weapon or anything like that. They're on my list of things to use more thoroughly to get a better feel for them, but I'm sure there's people in the chat that have more experience with those guns that could specifically answer. I tend to, or at least so far, I've tended to stick with the 3 TR LMGs that I've mentioned, plus the NS-15. But I will be I will be using them in the future here as I work up towards getting my 5 ItZM LMGs, or 5+ I should say. Well, that was bad. For the directives that are coming out with the special weapons and whatnot. So stay tuned to my stream and I'll let you know how I like them as I go through them. I'll give you a little bit of a better idea. I feel like I could benefit still from light assault in this situation. Hassan is a very, very good light assault friendly area for the most part, between trees and hills and just kind of the new build. Oh my. Surprised I didn't land those shots. I'm not using the recursion stat tracker on the official stream just because I felt like, I don't know, might detract from kind of the informative nature of the show and just kind of what I was going for. I figured it's more of a casual, it's an awesome program, and I recommend it to anybody who's interested in checking it out. recursiontracker.com, I believe, is the new website. Both for fun, as well as for tracking your gameplay and trying to improve from session to session. And I almost exclusively stream with it on, well, it was kind of lucked out there, on my own personal channel, but I didn't include it for here. Oh, the Galaxy Bulldog. It's her favorite. It's her favorite thing to die to at the moment. LOL. Alright, Hatcher's gone. This base is more or less pretty much gone. 26 seconds. Chalk looks overrun from the looks of this. I might go to the Intel Hub first. That is a good question, Deadliest Moon. I'm not really sure. If you would have asked me that a few months ago, straight pole vault would have probably been my answer before they even announced it. Because I always felt like that was missing, like just obviously missing from sniper rifles. And I'm not even somebody who sniped much. I just felt like that was something that was very much needed. But I don't know that I feel that way about the other guns in general. I mean, I'm fairly happy with the attachments that we have available for the most part.
Generator destroyed.
Oh, that was interesting hitch. Boy, are they climbed up in there. So I wonder... Yeah, I guess they're all just kind of surrounding the A point, if I had to take a guess. So the MCG is an interesting weapon. I could certainly throw it on a loadout here. Wow. For what it's worth. After its so-called buff recently, it's kind of been brought into usefulness. I still enjoy the flexibility of the LMGs more, but it's really not bad. Kind of fills a unique role, much like the Lasher does for VS, and to a lesser extent the Jackhammer for NC. While the Jackhammer is good, it's kind of just a good shotgun as opposed to having a very specific friendly grenade that I decided to eat. What are we talking about soft point on? Because I mean I had the carve there, but you guys may have been mentioning that whenever I was using something else. The Cougar, perhaps? Cougar does have high velocity, I believe, as the only option, yeah. So as a general rule of thumb, I mean that's even a good point to speak about. If there is only one ammo type available, which is pretty much always the case, with the exception of some like NS weapons and whatnot, I pretty much always use the special ammo. It's not necessarily the first thing I buy or anything like that, but I do pretty much always use it as opposed to using nothing in that slot. I think that's because the weapons that generally have it available to them, the ammo is quite well. So I always feel like the benefits of it outweigh the downsides for both high velocity and soft point. The tricky part comes in weapons that can use both, like the NS-11C is a good example. On that one, even if I'm using it in close quarters, I would prefer the high velocity ammo because it has relatively low velocity in the first place. But I mean that does kind of go either way depending on the situation that you're in. I'll use compensators in certain situations whenever I am pretty exclusively using a weapon and pretty much an LMG at that at long range, like only. When I'm almost positive I'm never going to be in a situation to be aiming or to be hip firing with it. Or even if I was, the hip fire on the gun is so bad that it wouldn't even matter. Those are the type of weapons I throw compensators on, because compensators do make your hip fire, cone of fire larger. So I would throw it on maybe like the TMG-50 or the Flare. I use compensators on that. For instance, I don't use a compensator on an SV-88 or a Pulsar C, even though they're weapons that I use predominantly medium-long range, because their hip fire is still good enough to be able to kill somebody with in a reasonable range without the compensator on. So it's kind of on a gun-by-gun basis. I don't feel like they're a huge help because vertical recoil is easy to compensate for manually, but if it's a weapon that I'm going to be aiming down sights 99% of the time, I'll throw it on anyway. Whereas laser sight or forward grip is a much more obvious choice. It's more along the lines of if I have a likelihood that I will hip fire it, or if it has decent enough hip fire anyway, then I'll use a laser sight and no compensator. If it's essentially an ADS only weapon, then the compensator and the forward grip will go hand in hand. Usually the laser sight weapons have soft point ammo and the forward grip weapons have high velocity ammo, but it's not always the case. Well, here comes the chop. Maybe. I see it struggling. So, here's some minimap usage. I was going to say, I knew that guy was creeping up there somewhere, but there are vanguards down there, so I don't want to die. So, just to give a quick overview of why the stream may or may not be choppy in the next coming minutes here. My ISP has been having some serious issues that I've had multiple people out here to look into. It's not something that I can control, and it's not something that a lot of them can control. Basically, there's a local business that's just pulling a ton of bandwidth on the upstream from our residential area. So we'll have these pockets of less than desirable bandwidth, which causes things like this to happen. But Anyway, in the VOD after the fact, in the recording, it should not be present, so I probably just sound like a lunatic. But for those of you who are watching live, I apologize for the inconvenience. It is something that I actually had technicians out here both last night and this morning seeing what we can do to fix it. So a fix is around the corner, hopefully, but at the moment, I apologize for any choppiness in frames here and there. Usually it gets over itself pretty quickly, so hopefully that'll be the case here. Oh, we just lost that spawn. There's actually going to be a potentially decent fights down there at Rusty Benclave. Oh, and they're back. I think I'm going to prefer this one. So I almost exclusively use Resist Shield with Advanced Shield Capacitor as my heavy assault combo. Unless you don't have very many certs and you know you need to buy more important things, I don't really recommend using or investing in the normal nanite mesh generator, the default heavy shield. I'd recommend either going Adrenaline Shield, Nanoweave, or so for me it's just kind of second nature to flick it on as a mitigator right before I take damage, which is how you want to be using Resist Shield. And since it doesn't stack with Nanoweave, if you are using Resist Shield, then you're going to want to be using something else in your suit slot. So for me it's Advanced Shield Capacitor, which allows me to be... Oh, he pulled up. Second too early, for me at least. So yeah, with Resist Shield, I want it to be ASC because it allows me to get back in the fight a little bit more. The two of them synergize really well. One though, I always accept. But anyway, Adrenaline's kind of more of the cooldown sort of base shield in my opinion. It's like you pop it, you go nuts for a little bit, maybe you kill a few people, but then, wow, did that? See, so a VS killed me with my own rocket launcher. It's very interesting. I'm not even, my mind is blown. I felt like I hit off of that corpse and blew up myself, but then it said he killed me. Maybe because of the suicide credit. So anyway, losing my train of thought. Adrenaline Shield, like I said, you kind of pop it. It's almost like you go berserk for a few seconds, and you kill a few people to regen it a little bit. But then, at a certain point in time, you're not going to have somebody to kill, and your shield's going to be almost fully depleted. And if you get into combat with somebody else right after that, you run the risk of having no shield starting the fight, and you have to pretty much certainly kill the person in order to get your shield back, so it kind of works against itself at that point. And that's the reason why I didn't like it, or at least chose to use Resist ASC instead. Because too often I'd find myself, I kill 3 people, and then I'm out of my shield for when the 4th guy comes around the corner, and I just fall over. But there are certain situations, especially like in towers, or with shotguns, or with a gun like the MCG, something that can roll through a lot of targets in rapid succession, that it works well. But I like my Resist ASC. This is kind of interesting through here. I'm not sure if I'm maybe better off as light assault to kind of get out of these valleys a little bit here. Keep in mind, these teleporters, which I totally just did not use, but most bases have them now, and a lot of people still don't use them. Sometimes they, take you to a not so useful place, and other times they're actually extremely helpful. So remember that they're there. So that was Carve's a really hard weapon to hipfire, and I don't even have a compensator on it. So this is the type of weapon I would compensator on if I could, because you need to kind of I have onslaughts at the moment, which are kind of the go-to close quarters. And that's more or less actually just what was there, so I grabbed it real quick because I knew people were going to be coming around the corner soon enough. But it doesn't quite have the accuracy of something like the Mercies when you're shooting at longer range. So you need to kind of close the gap a little bit better. Oh wow, it didn't even look like he had a rocket out. I just ate that in the face. Yeah, I know, guys. It's unavoidable bandwidth hogging that's happening at the moment that I don't really have any control over, so I apologize for that. It's literally getting so bad that it's happening every day, multiple times, and it's really frustrating because I try to, whether I'm on this stream, or especially I should say when I'm on this stream, but even on my own, I try to produce a high quality broadcast for you guys, and I kind of just get kneecapped. But before this show next week, it should be all sorted out. I've actually got supervisors and whatever looking into it, so hopefully we'll get it all taken care of. Well, thank you for your patience in the time being. Maxes are not, for what it's worth, something I pull that often. I just prefer the agility, the flexibility, and the speed of the other infantry classes. But maxes are incredibly powerful and probably should be pulled more often than I pull them, just in terms of efficiency on the battlefield. Kind of the close quarters, high density infantry areas where you're not really at danger of dying to vehicles and whatnot will be best for it. The whole it was adjusted when the nanoweave armor was adjusted to kind of balance it out, but in turn it's made it not as strong. Oftentimes, at least I will miscalculate how much health somebody has left, and I'll go to jab them, and then they'll be at like 10% health, and then I'll die while I'm waiting for the ability to shoot again. But nonetheless, I think it's worth having on a accessible keybind, so you can just smash it if you know somebody's low enough, because oftentimes it'll do damage a lot faster than holding down your mouse button would. You don't see me playing a lot of medic or engineer in comparison to the other four classes, largely because I play solo frequently, but don't be mistaken, they are incredibly good, valued classes as well, especially if you're playing in larger platoons and whatnot. Medic, really, really great starter class, probably the one I would recommend, and I think the one that most people recommend for getting that EXP early on. So see Crossroads is looking like something I would enjoy, so I'm going to head over there while I wait in queue real quick. Because I mean, medics are just as combat ready as any other class in terms of scoring kills, but you're getting revives, you're getting heals, and other sort of support as well, so you can kind of rake in some certs pretty quick early on. Yeah, Bass Tapes in chat, he's definitely one of the best medics I've played with, so if you have medic questions, he can probably answer them better than I. I'm going to check. Yeah, see, so the instant action is Crossroads at the moment. I don't know what I'm going to be getting into over there, so I'm going to probably jump Infil SOAS again for the landing, just so that I don't land right next to a tank and just get blown up right away. It was a fairly safe landing. I almost forgot about that. I don't know how good that's gonna do with the lag, so I apologize. Yikes. ACX-11 just ate me up. So something I really like to do, and I'll grab a links for it, at crossroads, whether you're attacking or defending, is squirrel tactics. Oh, apparently my links loadout got reset yet again. I thought I just set this back up. I am going crazy. Another example. So anyway, squirrel tactics. There's a tree in between the main tower and the sea point that is very easily both ascended and descended, whether you're attacking or defending. More and more people catch on to this, and it's not quite as effective as it was a year and a half ago, but there's even a beacon up there for NC that I just ran by. But nonetheless, it's pretty fun. Gets you pretty good vantage right into, you know, whether it's guys that are up here that don't expect you to be up here, or you're, you know, shooting down into the sea building itself. One of my favorite approaches. So Lynx was recently buffed to kind of stand out a little bit from the Jaguar, and I think that's what's largely making it the close quarters hipfire choice for TR. That was kind of poor. It was 3 different targets in one Lynx magazine, especially heavies. Wasn't really going to happen. So it's, I mean, the Lynx and the Jaguar both are still very good close quarters options. But the Lynx kind of outperforms in the rate of fire department now for the advanced laser sight, hipfire monster, just hold down the button sort of a weapon. But it's definitely going to suffer. It's going to be much harder to control it at ADS ranges, even, you know, even the ranges or something like that. It's not quite an SMG, and you know, its hipfire capabilities, or at least range, is still limited. So when you have to ADS it, it definitely suffers. Like even this range is probably the furthest that I feel like I can be very accurate with it, and it's a hold down the mouse button and just adjust for recoil compensation type of weapon. Try to get your headshots against heavies like that, otherwise they're gonna take you down first with their shield. Shit, there's another guy coming. Alright, he didn't see me though. Also don't want to be too exposed for too long there to those tanks. But yeah, I mean, prior to the revamp of any of the continents, actually, prior to Lattice, Crossroads was my absolute favorite base in the entire game, and it's still among them. I don't know if it's favorite now. Largely just because I loved how flexible Light Assault was here. Even when they're kind of more at this range, you can shoot from the tree and whatnot. Keep in mind also another thing with marking, like spotting your target with the Q button. Most people probably already know this, but the enemy callout is probably the largest thing. Like whenever you spot somebody and it says enemy soldier spotted or whatever, enemies hearing that is probably the biggest detriment, and something that I would definitely recommend not spotting somebody unless you have a real reason to do it. Like it's low light, or they're behind some bushes, you're having trouble seeing where they're at, or you're far enough away where they're not going to hear it, or you're spotting them for your platoon. There's plenty of good reasons to spot people, but if you're just running up behind somebody and you totally have the jump on them, don't give them the heads up that you're there. Another thing is the marker implant is my implant of choice for hipfire SMG Infiltrator loadouts, because I don't feel something like Battle Hardened has as much pertinence there, and it allows you to get a free mark without actually calling it out. So as soon as you fire, you're able to stay on target, and you're also not alerting them to your presence. So the golden pistols, brief history lesson, they were originally a Facebook promotion back in the alpha beta of the game, and they're actually really difficult to get. Many people did not get them, and a handful of people picked them up actually when they were bugged at a later date related to Araxian metals, and then they were unobtainable until just recently at MLG Anaheim when SOE so graciously put them back into the game as giveaway codes. So you can, I should have totally hit the medkit before I reloaded there. You can find them various places now. SOE often gives them out themselves on social media, on streams just like this, and they were kind enough to give the Player Studio or Player Direct streamers like myself a handful of codes to give out as well. So you'll see them pop up from time to time throughout our broadcasts. Whenever you input the code, you get the golden default pistol for all 3 empires, all of your characters. So really cool stuff. Very glad that they brought them back. Another thing with medkits, oftentimes when I know I'm not going to be fighting somebody, either I'm almost out of ammo or I'm evading, I'll take it out in advance, even if I'm not taking damage, just so that once I start taking damage, I can, you know, I can afford hitting it, like something like this. Like I have it out, but I didn't have to use it. Like 15 seconds ago or so I did, so just another small medkit tidbit. I probably could afford it to wait for a heal that time, but I generally use them if I'm below like 80% health, and I'm not getting healed otherwise, just because it's the difference of life and death in the next fight that you're in. In terms of implants, do I have every tier 3? I don't think so. I actually did an experiment on this character when they first came out, and I spent 5,000 certs on implants just to kind of see what I got. And I got, you know, all of the tier 1s and tier 2s, and most of the tier 3s, I think, from that, but not all of them. And since then, I've just, you know, kind of crafted up. But that's not to say that you need to actually spend anything, because my other characters I have actually haven't spent a dime or a cert on, and have still progressively maintained enough charge to power all my implants, as well as get the implants that I need. So it was kind of just a personal experiment to see what it looked like on either side. So we're pushing over to Xenotech now. This is kind of more of a vehicle/sniper fight, not something I'm really interested in staying in. I know the time is up, that hour really flies fast. But if I was looking for the next fight, I'd maybe consider Shrouded Skyway. I probably should have been redeploying already. Or, you know, I'd hop in a vehicle or something like that. Ganon potentially looks decent as well. Sorry, I should probably take that off the screen. Figure those codes are grabbed up by now. Keep in mind you can deploy directly into other warp gates directly from the redeploy screen as well. And then I would try and I would hit my instant action, see where it would take me. In this case, it is taking me to Ganon, where I want to go. I'm going to grab the Cougar loadout as light assault just because I'm not sure what I'm getting into. I figure that affords me some flexibility. And then once we lose the space, we'll probably be done for the night. I can't believe how fast that goes. And again, I apologize for the dropped frames, but as I said, it should be something that's all sorted in advance of next week's show. At least I'm going to be calling them every day. I actually have the cell phone number of one of the senior technicians that was here last night. He was cool enough to provide me with that information so I could be in touch and make sure we get this resolved, rather than just like they're here and then they disappear and I don't really have any way to follow up directly without calling general customer service. So that's cool. Yeah, so for at least for TR, since this is the TR show, max abilities. I don't, like I said, I don't use them often, but I generally always run with charge over lockdown. Lockdown has its uses, especially if you want to camp with with the max somewhere and be just kind of watching a doorway or something like that, or a stairwell. or if you're maybe even outdoors with a burster or something like that, and you feel like you're hidden enough that you want the added benefit of it. But I think charge generally affords a lot more flexibility, and that's usually my go-to given my rather aggressive playstyle. Yeah, I imagine they just forgot to update the title, but all of these are going to go up as VODs on Twitch and on YouTube at a later date. Both, I'm going to be putting them on my YouTube channel as well as the official PlanetSide 2 YouTube channel, so I'm sure that'll all get squared away. I haven't really seen it bug out too much in my recollection, Hugbox. Getting kind of pushed in here pretty hard. Here's a good example of the Cougar's effectiveness at range. Oh man, somebody had a Corvus. I kind of like the Corvus, but people laugh at me for liking it. Alright, so I mean that's kind of that as far as that goes. I actually do have 2 more sets of codes, so I'll save the surprise element this time, especially since the frames are dropping a bit, and I'll let you guys know that I'm gonna put 2 more codes in the chat. So get ready to type them in if you're interested. There's 1 more 7-day boost and 1 more golden gun codes that we're gonna give out for this session, and then we will be back next week with a either an NC or a VS show. I have the straw poll vote going on. So far it's completely tied, when I clicked on it at least. 8 votes for NC, 8 votes for VS. So click that link, go ahead and vote which Empire you want to see next week on that show, and I'll do whichever one. This vote can go right up to the last minute. I'll do whichever one has more votes, and then 2 weeks from now will be the show for the other Empire. There's your codes. Oh man, look at that even split of votes. That's crazy. Yeah, I do actually like the Cougar quite a lot. It fills that 167 damage carbine roll for TR that they don't really have, and it has really decent hip accuracy still, especially if you put a laser sight on it that can kind of go both ways. And I like that versatility about it. But anyway, that's it for this show. I'll leave this on for a little while, so make sure these 2 codes that are on the bottom ticker right now are taken, although I'm sure they are by now. And I will relink the straw poll on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot over the next week, so that we have even more opportunities to vote. And we'll see which Empire is going to be up for the next show. That is not a real cat. That's a fake cat. That's a digital cat, but it sounds kind of like a real cat. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Again, sorry for any inconvenience with the dropped frames. And I will see you here next week at this time, 9:30 Eastern on Monday, for whichever Empire wins this vote. So you guys have a good night. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and be sure to tune in every day this week for more excitement with the new Player Direct shows right here on twitch.tv/PlanetSide2. In the meantime, you guys can catch me over at ItZMuRdA.com, and I will see you there. Have a great night.